Hello, everyone, and welcome to the dessert to the Kiss episode that Cody and I just did. Me ranking the 4 solo albums from every member of Kiss. So, if you listen to the Kiss episode Cody and I just did on Destroyer and Love Gun, you'll know that I mentioned that I was going to have a little bonus episode doing the ranking of the 4 solo records, and obviously, this is what you're listening to slash watching at the moment. Because apparently, I'm such a big Kiss fan, and I mentioned this on the episode that Cody and I did. I'm suddenly like big on Kiss. I mean, they're obviously not my favorite band, as I mentioned in the episode. I think they're a very good band. I don't think they're a great band musically, but what they do so well is that persona, the vibe, the makeup, all the theatrics of them. And so I didn't quite get into this on the episode, but it's worth mentioning that at the height of Kiss's popularity, arguably, in their first era of music, which is known as the classic era, the first six records, they are at the absolute peak of their fandom, their stardom. The entire world knows who they are. They're considered one of the biggest rock bands in the world, and their tours are incredible and insane. At the height of all of this, they decide, you know what? Let's do solo albums, one for each member of the band, which no band did that. No band does that. And honestly, when you look at other bands at the time who were big and popular and whatever, I'm surprised no one saw Kiss doing this and go, maybe we should do that. You know, maybe it's a sign of a band falling apart, which in some cases, the reasons they did the solo records was kind of to salvage the band. Ace and Peter were having issues and wanted to do their own thing. So the record company was like, well, what if you guys just did solo records just to like remove yourselves and then come back together as Kiss? So all these records I'm going to talk about are under the Kiss label, but each single record is just one person taking over. And honestly, I don't know why other bands didn't do this. Like, Led Zeppelin, arguably, because Bonham died, they didn't have it on their mind. But I would be really, honestly, I'd be interested in hearing Led Zeppelin at the peak of their popularity doing solo records. Or, I don't know, the Beatles kind of did that because they broke up and then they all went their separate ways and made solo work. But if the Beatles made the White Album technically is 4 solo albums thrown together, but you get my point, I think, which is I'm surprised bigger bands or big bands of the time did not do this as well. So I really have to give credence to Kiss because I think this is a really cool idea for them to do this. On top of it, I think all these records are pretty damn good, which I think is the first hot take I will give. There's a couple hot takes with this episode. If you know the Kiss solo albums, this list might be surprising to you because it's not your general stereotypical list for most of the solo albums. But, some people say the Peter Criss album is not good at all. Some people say the Gene album is just kind of whack. I don't agree with any of that. I think all these albums at worst are good, right? The bottom one, at moments, I think it's just okay, but it's an enjoyable record. I would never not listen to it. Some of these records, though, and there's only 4 of them, but the top 2, I think, are just phenomenal. The bottom 2, they're good. The top 2, though, amazing. So this video shouldn't take very long. There's only 4 records to talk about, but I just want to point out once again that if you haven't listened to the Kiss episode we did, I would recommend watching or listening to that first. It gives you a lot of the background information of both Cody and my opinions of Kiss, how I sort of got roped into this whole Kiss fandom that I'm now a part of, and why these records are kind of now being talked about and being discussed. On top of the fact that it's just a little bonus thing, so you're either here or you're not, so that's fine. So 4 records, one for each member, which, if you don't know, are Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, Ace Frehley, and Peter Criss. So which one do I think is the bottom of the barrel in terms of which one do I think is the weakest? Now, if you go to any, and I'm going to say any, if you go to like any other list for the Kiss solo albums and which one is the best and which one is the worst, every single one of them, 9 times out of 10, puts Peter Criss's album at the bottom. It's not Kiss. It doesn't sound good, yada, yada, whatever the reasoning is. It's not my bottom. The bottom album for me is the Gene Simmons one. These are the picture disc versions, so you can see that the cover, of course, is Gene's. All of them are the covers of their faces. But why is Gene's my least favorite? I want to say a few things about Gene first, which I, again, belabored on in terms of the Kiss episode, but I want to reiterate here. Gene's persona of the demon, I think, is like the coolest one, right? It's just such a cool iconography. The fact that he would spit and vomit blood and spew fire on, like, that's so fucking cool to me. So You take rock music and just elevate it that other level. It's really awesome. And I think that Gene Simmons does it really well, right? The whole tongue thing. When he's in the makeup, I mean, he's already kind of a weird dude to begin with, but when he's in the makeup, he like sells the idea of like, I'm a demon, dude. Like, I'm this creepy thing that haunts your nightmares and whatever. And so you look at this cover, which is kind of hard to see because of the lighting, but if you look closely, you can see that in the painting here, he has blood coming out of his mouth. It's a little bit, right? But it's a very good painting. Excuse me, it's not a photo. A very good painting that sort of encapsulates Gene's persona in the band. He's the demon. He's the scary, creepy one. He's the guy that will spit blood and shoot fire out of his mouth. Like, he's that dude. So you would think in doing a solo album where it's all his control, he has all the creative control on this record, that he would take it that direction, that he would go, okay, since I'm the demon, I'm going to turn this into a really creepy ass, dark, heavy album. And when you turn on the record, the first song you get is Radioactive. And the first minute and a half is this like creepy, dark intro with strings and like laughing and cackling. And it just sets the vibe. It sets the vibe of, oh, this is going to be like a dark record where the demon just like holds you by the throat for the next 45 minutes and takes you into hell. Nope, not at all. The first minute and a half, absolutely, that's what you get. But then Radioactive actually starts, and it's a soft rock classic track. And immediately I go, what the hell, right? Why is your intro this creepy ass laughing and cackling and the representation of hell? And then all of a sudden we get to Radioactive, which, to be fair, I like Radioactive, the song. I think it's a good little song, but it's a total 180 shift, right? And like, he's the demon. He's not Peter Criss. He's not Paul Stanley. He's not the guy who like makes the ballads or whatever. And so immediately, the second this record starts, I'm like, well, this is just kind of a weird tonal shift. Like, either cut the intro, because that's not what this song is, or make Radioactive a really heavy song. Now, to solve that question, I think what he should have done is cut the intro, because you get that intro and literally nothing on this record sounds like that. Absolute zero. We get Burning Up with Fever after that, which you get this hard, heavy 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of thing. And then it goes into like this acoustic guitar thing. And like that, it's a funny little joke, but also, what is the vibe? What are we trying to go for here? Because it's not hitting it. Once you actually get into the song, I actually like Burning Up with Fever a lot. I think it's a nice groove. It's got great power chorus. I really have no issues with it, except from a tonal standpoint. Once again, it's like, you started this record with cackling and laughing and demons, and now we're just having fun rock songs. It's like, well, what's the approach? See You Tonight, you know, it sounds like early Beatles stuff, which Gene is a very big Beatles fan. He said that the reason he largely got into rock music was because he saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. And like, I get it. A lot of people at the time had the similar thing. It's sort of a little too Beatles though. Like, you know, it's not so much flattery. It's very much imitation at that point. There is a low end guitar sound that is very cool here, but at the end of the day, I think the song's just fine. It doesn't do any super great thing for me. And then you get Tunnel of Love. Now, Gene, as I also said on the Kiss episode, he's a very strange dude. I'm surprised he never got Me Too'd, because that would have totally not shocked me at all. So you can probably imagine what Tunnel of Love is about. But it's got a great bass tone, this groovy riff. It's a good little song. I don't love the female bit on the chorus. I think it's a little too hokey. And as you're listening to this, you have this image, whether it's the vinyl casing, whether it's the picture disc spinning on the record player, whether it's the CD casing, you have this song playing and it's a good song. But then you look at this and you go, who's behind this record? Is it the demon? Or is it Gene Simmons, the guy who's not in makeup, the guy who grew up on the Beatles? Because it's not the guy who spits blood and shoots fire out of his mouth, right? It's not the guy who has the bat wings and the boots with the face on it and the teeth. It's like, that guy's not on this record. So who is this on the front cover? It's like, that's my major issue with this record. I'll go through the rest of the songs because why not? It's a short enough video, but like, man, just the tonality of this record, I think, is so off that it just kind of has to fall to the bottom for me. On the end of side 1, you get True Confessions. It's fine, but really it's entirely forgettable for me. And once again, the persona of the demon is just not here. It's just, at this point, it's just removed. It's gone. It's not coming back. Flip the record over, you get Living in Sin. Gotta be my least favorite song on here. It has this lame ass spoken word intro that's just cringy as hell. And then you get the chorus, Living in Sin at the Holiday Inn. Like, what are you, a 5th grader? Like writing in your notebook, like, oh, this is so funny. This is so cool. I'm living in sin at the holiday. It's like, just not a fan at all. It's just honestly stupid. It's a stupid song. But then directly after that, you get my favorite track, which is Always Near You / Nowhere to Hide. Now, the Always Near You section, I think it's fine. It's not doing anything incredible. It's fine. It's not impressive. It just is totally passable. But then you get to that Nowhere to Hide section, and that portion is great. It's cinematic. It sounds amazing. And then Gene gets into like this high ass register with his voice that he never does on, all the Kiss records I've listened to, he never did it. And it's like, I think he should do that more often, because at that point he can start competing with Paul Stanley for best vocalist in Kiss, or at least my favorite. But he just does it here. But in doing it, it leads to a really cool moment. So I like it a lot. Man of a Thousand Faces. Is this supposed to be the demon persona coming out? Because if it is, it's just strings and a soft chorus. It's like, it's just whatever. It just is completely whatever to me. It's nothing special. Mr. Make Believe, more of the same. It's got a nice guitar intro, but once again, it is just a straight Beatles song. It's just by the numbers Beatles, which I love the Beatles, so that I don't hate this song, but it's trying to be the Beatles, and it succeeds in some areas, but in others it just kind of is just complete imitation. See You in My Dreams. It doesn't sound that much better than the original. This is like the ones, obviously it's a Kiss song, so it's like Gene's redoing of the song, and I don't think it's that much better than the original. If it's any better, it's like maybe 10% better. So, we're working through this album. We're getting towards the end, and I'm just like, man, this record, it's good. It's not bad. It's good. I'm just going along. I'm just like, man, this is just fine. It's got cool moments. It's got some good songs, some not so good songs. And I'm just getting towards the end. I'm like, man, I just kind of want this to be over. And then he throws at the end of this record a cover of When You Wish Upon a Star from Disney's Pinocchio. And I appreciate the sentiment of why he did it. He did it because he was a huge Disney fan. His mom was an immigrant who immigrated to America, and he truly believes that, anybody can live the American dream. When you wish something, it can come true. Totally for it, right? The sentiment is beautiful. But what are we doing here? Like, who is this? Who is this guy? And if you're watching the audio or listening to the audio, I'm pointing to the cover of this record, which is Gene in the demon makeup with blood dripping down his mouth. Like, who is this? Because it's not the person that's on pretty much every goddamn song here, and especially not the person that's on When You Wish Upon a Star. Once again, I understand this is under the Kiss label, so maybe Gene was forced to like do the whole makeup thing because that's what Kiss is, but like it really deters the record for me. It sort of brings it down a bunch of notches because I see this image and it's such a cool image of Gene. It's such a cool album cover, but like it's just not what it is. It's not the thing you're listening to. It's sort of like a prank in some ways. It's like, yeah, you're expecting this heavy ass record, and the first minute and a half of Radioactive makes you think that's what's going to happen. And then they go psych and pull the rug out from under you. Next 30-ish minutes, it's going to be this instead. And it's like, okay, I enjoy it, but it kind of tricked me in a weird way that in any event, it's my least favorite. It's not bad. I'll still listen to it, but if I'm going to pick one of these, it's the one I'm picking last. So yeah, Peter Criss album is not my bottom, but it is my number 3, because while I do think this album gets way too much hate, it is, compared to the other two we haven't talked about, not nearly as good. So the Peter Criss album, as I mentioned, notoriously just shit upon because people think, oh, this record sucks. It's not Kiss at all, where some moments on the Gene record you could argue is Kiss-like. This literally has 0. There's nothing here that sounds like Kiss. And if you're taking it from that perspective of like, these solo records have to be Kiss albums, because to be fair, they say Kiss on every single one of them, so it's under the Kiss umbrella. Like, this album does not deserve the hate it gets. I think there's moments on here that are phenomenal, like really good songs. Other ones, yeah, I'm with you. They're not that great, but like some of these songs are really kick ass. Kick ass is the wrong word. Some of these songs are really good. You get I'm Gonna Love You off the top, and immediately I like it. Like, yeah, it's not Kiss, it's not heavy, it's not what the band would do as they are a band, but with Peter by himself with a backing band, if this is what he's doing, great. I think it sounds good. It's not Kiss, but it's great for what it is. And then you get You Matter to Me. That freaking whistle synth, like, I don't know how else to describe it. You know what I'm talking about if you know the song. That thing, that was $1 million choice right there. That thing is so good, adds so much flavor to it. I don't have a problem with covers being on this record. You know, one of my cardinal sins, you know me well, you know this, is that I hate when they put covers on studio albums. It's just not a good choice in my opinion. I'm pretty sure this record has like 3 or 4 covers on it, and I don't really mind it, believe it or not. I think they're good covers to begin with, but I also just think it's a solo album, right? It's just like a side project under Kiss. Now, if it's a solo album with Peter Criss leaving the band and then makes his own work, then I might have an issue with it. But since these are kind of like bonus discs or bonus albums, I kind of think of it that way. I don't really have a problem with covers here or B-sides or whatever. But yeah, the synth in You Matter to Me is just so goddamn good. Tossin' and Turnin'. It's a fun little cover. You know, nothing amazing here. It's got great cowbell though. The cowbell is awesome. But once again, I'm not hating it. Like, I was told I would hate this record. I was told this thing is awful. It's trash. It's like a 1 out of 10. Like, what? A 1 out of 10? Maybe in terms of a Kiss record, it's a 1 out of 10. But as a record on its own, it is not nearly a 1, right? That's just ridiculous. Because then you get Don't You Let Me Down, my favorite song here. Just such a great, smooth vibe. The backing vocals are great. The way they like call and response what's going on. The vibe here is so good. And on top of it, the vibe on this record is consistent, right? The whole way through, I'm looking at Peter Criss in makeup, and even though it doesn't sound like a lot of the stuff Kiss did, at least I'm looking at his Catman persona and being like, well, this is the guy that did Beth. Like, I can get this from him. Like, this makes sense. Unlike looking at Gene's record and going, this is the Demon, right? Am I listening to the Demon's record here? Because it doesn't sound like it. I'm listening to the Catman's record here, and I'm like, yeah, it sounds like something the Catman would do. But yeah, Don't You Let Me Down. I love that track. Unfortunately, side 1 ends with That's the Kind of Sugar Papa Likes, which is a terrible title, and it's not that great of a song. It's just whatever. It's not a skip track per se, but it's one that I get to and I'm like, this is kind of the low point for me. Flip it over, you get Easy Thing, which, to be honest, is just a reattempt at Beth. It's just Beth 2.0. I do like it, though. I like the vocals. The power ballad sort of display is very clear. It's very prominent, but it's just Beth's cousin at this point. Rock Me Baby. I have to give credit to the cover here. It's a fun song. It's got fun horns and fun like jingly melody, excuse me. Like a jivey mood. I think much of that is due to the original song. This is just a cover of Rock Me Baby, but I think it's just kind of transposed. Kiss the Girl Goodbye. It's another light moment that never gets big, and because it never gets big, it never like goes bombastic for me in the way that I like some of the earlier songs. You get Hooked on Rock and Roll. I'm surprised this isn't a cover because it just sounds like one. It's upbeat. You know, it's just more fun. This record is fun to me. The Gene record, you know, at times it's not fun, but this record is fun, and I kind of appreciate that more in this sort of sense. And then finally, to end it all out, you get I Can't Stop the Rain. It's a good song. You know, it's not great, I think, but at least it tracks. At least the whole way through this thing on all 10 songs, I listen to it and I go, you know what? Yeah, it's not Kiss, but at least it's not the Gene record, you know, in terms of punking you out, making you think this record's going to be one thing, but it's another. So to sum this record up, I think it gets way too much hate. I think this record is good. Is it great? No, but it's good. And, you know, Don't You Let Me Down, I think is amazing. But overall, it's my third because the top 2, which are typically the top 2, are just better in comparison to the Gene and the Peter record. The Paul and the Ace records are just like the standouts. But where most people put the Ace Frehley record at number 1, I actually put it at number 2. Now, you can probably guess why that is if you listen to the Kiss episode. I kind of went off about my favorite member of Kiss, who is the one we haven't talked about yet. But to be fair, this Ace record is really, really good. And if anybody said to me, "Oh, the Ace record is my favorite of the Kiss solo albums," I'd be like, "I totally get it," because this is damn good work. And what's sort of shocking, but not shocking when you consider the band, is that when they decided to do the solo records, the sort of famous story about the Ace one is that Paul and Gene told Ace, "Hey, if you need any help, just call us. We'll come and help you out," because they thought there's no way Ace could pull off a solo record. And he goes, "I don't need your damn help. I'll do it myself and make it work." And he makes it work. This one is definitely the best rock album out of all of them. It's got the best rock sensibilities. There are some crushing songs here that are so damn good. But it's my number 2. So I'll just go through the track by track just to make it clear. So Rip It Out is your opener. You get a very great rocking opener. Showcases Ace is not messing around. Rip It Out sounds like the response to Paul and Gene saying, "Hey, we can call us if you need help." And he's like, "All right." And he sends them Rip It Out. And they're like, "All right, this guy does not need help. He knows what he's doing." Speeding Back to My Baby, unfortunately, as a follow-up to the first track, I think it's not one of my favorite songs here. It showcases that Ace is a good singer, which is great, but it's one of the tracks here that I kind of just like, I'm just whatever on. Snowblind, though, love the intro that goes into the verse. It gives me a lot of Edgar Winter vibes, Snowblind does, which I like Edgar Winter, so that's not a bad thing. And I got to point out, too, even though this is an Ace record and it is led by Ace, Ace had Anton Fig on drums, and Anton crushes it throughout this record. Ace obviously crushes it the most because he's got the most to prove, but Anton really shows up. And on a song like Snowblind, he also shows up. Ozone, a lot of people's favorite song on this record, and it is just sick. Complex riff. Love, love, love the sound of this. Ozone might be my favorite song. It's repetitive, but I don't mind it, right? It's just like that, like that sort of like riff over and over again. And I have no problem with it at all. I think it's great. Its length does not bother me. I think it's somewhere in like the 4 to 5 minute range. Really good song. You then get my least favorite song on the record, which is What's on Your Mind. It's fine, but it just doesn't do much for me. And especially following up Ozone, like Ozone kind of kicked the door down, and What's on Your Mind kind of puts it back on its hinges and fixes it. It's like, you should just kept it on the floor, because that's what we're trying to do here. The cover of New York Groove, the most popular song from these records, in that it's the one that charted the highest in terms of across all 4 albums. It's just a killer cover of Back in the New York Groove. Like, so good. Love it. I'm in the Need of Love. Probably my second favorite song, actually, because there's this echo on the guitar throughout this. It is absolutely everything. It is slow, plotting, and it's great, but that echo thing that happens with the guitar just like kicks it up a notch. Then you get to the middle, which just like kicks it up a notch in terms of speed. Just as good, right? Really, really cool song. Really interesting stuff. Wiped Out. The verse is good, but then the chorus kind of like breaks through, like out of nowhere too. It's sort of that punking you out thing that Gene does, but where Gene's whole album is punking you out, this is like, verse, bam, chorus comes out of nowhere, and it's a cool little moment. Heavy as shit too, like really heavy song, and I appreciate that because I like heavy music. Also, the solo. I didn't mention the solos that Ace does throughout this record. The solos are fantastic on a lot of these songs. Wiped Out actually has one of my favorite solos on the record. And then you get the final track, which I wish every member was forced to do this, was make an instrumental, because I think that would have been really interesting to hear what each member's instrumental would have been. The only instrumental on all 4 of these albums is Fractured Mirror, and I think it's a really cool, interesting instrumental. Very repetitive. It's an instrumental though, so you kind of expect that, but like really cool. Really, really cool. Fantastic record. Really, really good. Have no super big qualms with it. What's on Your Mind is a song I could probably do without, but otherwise I think this record's really damn good. So when people say it's the best, I understand why. However, it's not my favorite. As I mentioned on the Kiss episode, I have a very clear favorite member of Kiss. And when he does a whole solo record by himself, I'm sorry, I got to put it at number 1. It's the Paul Stanley record. Paul Stanley is my favorite Kiss member. I think this painting of him that's on the cover / picture disc here is so good. The other ones are really good, but this is just something about this one. I don't know if it's the way it's like the visage is, or the fact that the purple light does something to it. Like, I just love this one. In fact, I bought like a shirt the day after I listened to this thing. So it was like, I need that somewhere represented, whether it's a poster, buying the album, obviously, but I went with a shirt. So there's that. I just love Paul's voice. I love his approach to things. And so when he does a whole solo record, it's really no surprise that I think that he does the most for me. So, yeah, Tonight You Belong to Me is the opener, and it's very, very hair metal, which you look at this album cover and you go, yeah, I think a lot of people listen to Kiss, a lot of bands, and then came up in the 80s and were like, we want to do that, and thus you get like the hair metal genre. Because you listen to a song like Tonight You Belong to Me, very hair metal sounding, sounds like Bon Jovi, sounds like Poison, sounds like the bands that would follow. But the song feels so epic. It's got such like an epic, big energy to it. Move On is a fun little rock song. Great guitar work. Ace isn't on this record, but Paul is really good on guitar too. Maybe not as good as Ace, to be fair, but if you make him do something on his own, he steps up. He does the thing. He makes it work. And Move On just proves that point. Ain't Quite Right. His voice. God, I just love Paul Stanley's voice. I just think his voice is such a good rock voice. And then you combine it with the riff. It's so good on the song. The song gives me like late night driving with driving in your convertible and the hood is down, driving through LA, sitting in the smoke-filled bar, like just hits the vibe of what it's trying to do so well. When You Like to Know Me, it sounds like a Kiss song. This sounds like something off one of their first 6 records, and maybe that's why I think it works so well, but it's just catchy as all hell. Like the wouldn't you like to know me? Like just really catchy chorus. I'm surprised this wasn't a hit. I'm surprised this didn't chart or wasn't seen as like something that could be a single, because I think it has the strength and has everything that all the other Kiss hits do. So there's that. Take Me Away, parentheses together as one. Really great power ballad. Another great solo, and just I really like the long outro. I think it just does a lot, sets the tone. It's the end of side 1, so like the long outro makes you know, okay, I think we're coming to an end point, and then you do, and you flip the record over, and you get It's All Right. Solid rocker. It's not one of my favorite songs, but the thing I want to point out about this record too is that there's no song here that I'm like, I could do without that. On the Ace record, I had a song there. Peter Criss, I had a song there. I was like, this is whatever. Gene, I mean, a lot of the songs on there, I was like, it's whatever. Here, no. There's not a single song here I'm like, it's just kind of whatever. It's bad. It's bland. It's meh. Like, there's nothing here that I think falls to that level. It's All Right's not one of my favorite songs on the record, but it's also not a song that I'm like, it's just not my thing. Hold Me, Touch Me, Think of Me When We're Apart. Man, if I was a female and Paul sang this song to me, or if I went to see one of their concerts and Paul was up there singing this, forget about it. I would have swooned hardcore. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. I think it's great. Love in Chains. It's not, I'm not convinced this isn't a Kiss song, right? Is this like a Kiss song that was in the vault somewhere for like the Love Gun sessions, and they were like, I'll just do this one because it sounds so much like Kiss. It's got a sick ass riff and an amazing, amazing chorus. Paul, I don't know if Paul, is the progenitor behind all the great choruses of Kiss, but like it sort of feels that way when you listen to this record. It makes it seem like Paul was the genius behind a lot of the great Kiss choruses throughout their career. And then you close with Goodbye. Just another banger, just another great song. It's got this little bass riff that I like a lot, and it shows off Paul's talents in spades, which this whole record does. The 2 reasons why I think this is my favorite is, 1, it's Paul, and I just love Paul. But 2, I think that as a whole unified record, this has the least weak moments on it. Maybe Ace has better moments across the board, like just singularity, better moments, but as a whole package, I think this one has no real notches against it, whereas Ace has a song or two where I'm like, it's just kind of whatever. Here, not a 1. And so for that, I have to give Paul Stanley the top spot in terms of the solo records. And yeah, that's my viewpoints and opinions of the the Kiss solo records. I think they're all good. I want to reiterate, even though I ranked them a certain way, and like I said, my ranking is not the traditional ranking you would see. The traditional ranking, if you don't know, is Peter at the bottom, then Gene, then Paul, then Ace. Ace is typically seen as the best one, where Peter's seen as the worst. Obviously, given my own list, I don't quite believe that, but I think all these records, at worst, are like, they're good. I enjoy them. Excuse me. I'll listen to them when I have free time or have the urge to do it. But if I'm going to pick one, it's definitely Paul, because I have a bit of a crush on Paul and his music, and I'm not going to get into that. So, yeah, that's that. Thank you for sampling this dessert of the bonus episode of Kiss. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one.